Hey there, and welcome to the Business of Business podcast. Here we are two daughters and their dad, seeking to inspire and educate you to follow your dreams of being in business by teaching you the business of being in business. The good, the bad, the humor are all parts of our unique perspective as an entrepreneurial family. Thanks for joining us. So grab a coffee, turn up the volume. Here we go. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Business of Business podcast, Two Daughters and Their Dad. I am your host, Staci J. Dempsey, and the J is very important because it's what brings all the joy to this podcast and many other things. Per usual, as always, thankfully, we have the dad and the other daughter, Jack and Jennifer. Good afternoon, guys. How you guys doing?
Good afternoon. I'm great.
Same here. Good afternoon, everybody.
And Jack and Jennifer would agree. I bring all the joy to all the things. Go ahead, say it for our listeners.
I feel like she's exaggerating. Like, what do we bring to the podcast?
Well, you know what? I am, a little overly excited because we have a really special guest with us today. Today we have Monica, who is the owner of Nourished Nest Therapy Consulting out of Texas. She is a high school friend of mine who, by the whims of social media, we've been able to stay connected for almost 20 years it has been since we've graduated. Doesn't seem like that's possible, but been able to stay connected over social media for the past 20 years. Once again, through the beauty of social media, able to really see that she has started her own business. And so, Monica, welcome. Thank you for being willing to be a part of our podcast.
Having me.
Yeah, it's been great reconnecting with her. And just catching up and talking about all the things really over the past couple of weeks. So Monica, why don't you tell us a little bit of your background, where you're from, kind of how you've gotten yourself to where you are now and what you're doing?
Yeah, no, sure. So, as you said in your intro, we went to Padua, so small town, Wilmington, Delaware. So after high school, I went and got my undergrad at a small college in Reading, Pennsylvania. I had my bachelor's in psych and a minor in addiction studies. And then I went to University of Pennsylvania and got my master's in social work and then became licensed. So I will tell you, I've had probably one of the coolest jobs. I know when we were connecting, I've told you last 15 plus years have been just a really cool ride and adventure. So for about probably 8.5 years of my career, it's been primarily substance use. So I will tell you, I always say I have the privilege of working with people because I think being a therapist you really are welcomed into somebody's process, right? It's very rarely can people tell you that you have a role where, you never hear the same story twice. But there's a lot of ups and downs. So more recently, I would say it's been about 4 years. I decided to go from kind of a group practice setting to my own private practice, took that leap. And that's kind of where the Nourished Nest Therapy Consulting came from. So right now I do individuals and couples counseling. I do not see children unless they are over the age of 16. That's kind of personal preference. And I'll be honest with you, when you do see kids, it's really, you're seeing the whole family. And I kind of describe it as like being a referee, right? So there's a lot of people, you're kind of, you're the crossing guard, stop, hold, and with couples, that's, as you can imagine, pretty exhausting. So, so the Nourished Nest Therapy and Consulting, that is that solo practice. And then I'm co-owner of Airapy, which also it's based out of Philadelphia. It's fairly new. It's kind of a bit of a startup. It's about a year old. With that, we actually are offering a service to help find you a therapist. So similar as a concierge, my co-owner and I, she's really into marketing. Kind of funny, we met on the subway. And we've been friends ever since. But we came up with this concept basically because, a lot of people, you look for a therapist and you're given this list of providers that you don't know anything about, right? So if you're in crisis or you're trying to find a therapist that might be specializing in specific issues, what we do is we have that individualized call with you. So you're talking to me and I get some information. Do you want to go through insurance? Do you want to use self-pay? What are some of those things that you're really looking at achieving? Do you prefer a male or a female? All those little things. And it's basically like matchmaking, but for a therapist. So I give you a list of top threes, give you their website. I reach out to them. I have a nice network of therapists, and then we connect you. And we basically walk you through that process until you make your first appointment. If you're not happy, we start again and go back to the drawing board. So that's a really cool service. That's been something that's been really busy this year just because of what's happened with the global pandemic. And, people are really, it's been a game changer this year, I think, for a lot of people, therapists, and I think just people,
I agree. So, completely. So tell us a little bit. I love this story. I want you to tell our listeners the story of how you went from Wilmington and ended up in Texas, and that job opportunity that you were expecting when you got to Texas, or what brought you to Texas.
Yeah, no, awesome. And I hope you forewarn them that, my stories are, they're kind of funny and all sorts of stuff, but my humor is a little different. After being a therapist, my humor can kind of go all over the place. So just a disclaimer, but yeah, so my husband and I at the time actually came down to Texas. He had been stationed here, for a few years. And of course we decided to go on vacation in July. So if you've ever been in Texas in July, it's 104 degrees. It's great, perfect weather. So we get on the plane, we go, and it was awesome. I mean, I remember coming to Texas, just kind of experiencing humidity, but also it was just a different place, right? I grew up in Delaware. So, my first job was at the charcoal pit making milkshakes, and Texas is like a small country, right? It's huge. So it's definitely not Wilmington, but we went down here, and on the way back, on a layover, there was just something about Houston. And I remember my husband and I at the time were like, let's make this a 5-year plan. Let's eventually go back to Texas. So I jump on Indeed, and I'm just curious what social workers make, because, most people are going to tell you as a social worker, I always kind of joke, initially you make McDonald's money. It is a thankless job. You're not really in it for the financial. You're in it really just because of what you do, right? It's a really cool industry to be in. So I start looking, and I'm like, okay, what do social workers make? Texas could be an idea. Maybe we'll retire here. So a couple of days later, I get this email, and it was from a woman who was wanting to open up a rehab. It's in this small town called Angleton, but it's in Texas. So she says, hey, let's set up a call. And I'm thinking, okay, so my resume does not say Texas. Maybe she didn't read it, whatever. So I said, thank you for reaching out, but I live in Philadelphia. I don't live in Texas. Just want to make sure, you're aware of that. And she said, oh, I know. She was in recovery. Her dad's actually a nephrologist. They wanted to open up this rehab. So they flew me down. I will tell you, I'm a huge Dateline fan. I was like, okay, this is how it all starts, right? They get you on Indeed. They start booking a plane ticket, and you show up, and there's probably the shack, and you disappear. So I was like, okay. So that didn't happen, obviously, because I'm safe, and it didn't work out that way. But I ended up meeting them in Houston. Angleton's kind of a small city out of Houston. The coolest part about the story is they bought this bed and breakfast. It's on several acres. I remember meeting with her and her father, and she had gotten clean. She starts telling me just about her recovery journey. She then tells me that she has $3 million budget. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm used to working in nonprofit where, you don't have a lot of money to play with, and, you're borrowing staplers, and, you better bring your own pen. So that was a pretty big budget. But she said, this is my vision. I remember flying back and just thinking, this is so cool, just to have that opportunity to help this woman create her dream. We actually ended up putting our house up for sale, and we hit the road, and we moved to Texas in 6 months. My son at the time was 2. That was huge, but it was that perfect pivotal moment. My husband and I were both working a lot of hours. We were definitely burnt out. I was working in a detox. We're working 100-hour weeks. It just was the right thing to do. And it changed our life in such a positive way. So I ended up staying with that company for about 2 years, wrote all their policies and procedures, did kind of like the JCO CARF certification, but I loved every minute of it. I actually still keep in touch with them. They ended up opening, but it allowed me to see, again, that passion for, if you have an idea, that it can happen. You don't always need to have the budget, right? It's not about the money. You're always going to run on a deficit in the beginning, but you have to be okay with that. All those dynamics and variables of starting a company. So it's a beautiful campground, kind of camp area, campus. But yeah, that's how I got to Texas.
Yeah, no, it was a great story when you told me, and even now when you tell me, I get goosebumps about, because a lot of times we'll get, we'll have guests on and they'll say, it wasn't the perfect time. It was definitely, like a real just kind of like knee shaking moment, and it's refreshing to hear that, sometimes it's the right moment and we're just going to do it, and it's exciting. And yeah, I'm sure, again, moving away from family and kind of what you've always known was maybe a little sad, but it's just so nice to hear, like, yes, we knew it was the right time and we did it. And we didn't
Absolutely.
let that opportunity pass us up. And I just find that so inspirational. So you left that place and you started working in another practice, and then tell us about that a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, after kind of transitioning and it was, again, when you talk about timing, it's really just kind of figuring out, that like personal and professional and like, what's the long-term goal, right? And I think a lot of people stay in a position or a company just because you're comfortable, right? So, like my parents' generation, they're in jobs for 30 or 40 years. You got millennials where it's like, they stay for a year, they kind of hippity hop. So, I was at the hospital, in Pennsylvania for 8.5 years. I got married, had my son when I was there. So it was like leaving family. I will tell you, I come from an Italian family. They all thought I was crazy because they have never left the same row home in Wilmington, 62 years with one bathroom and, 8 kids. So they thought we were nuts. But, after leaving, that startup, I ended up joining a group practice in Houston, and there's 6 psychiatrists and there's 3 therapists. And, what's really cool about that is within mental health in our industry, there's a disconnect, right? There's a lot of providers, but no one really talks to each other. It's amazing that we get paid to talk to people, but we don't communicate with each other. But I think that's really common with, the medical industry. So what I really liked was, that coordination of care, but it was right up the hallway. So there are several docs in that practice that I still get referrals from. And it just made sense because I'll be honest with you, I got tired of having to request off, and I just got really tired of asking. So I thought, I've always been someone where, I have a very direct approach, but it's passionate and I have no filter, that, Staci. So I just kind of had this bug of, I like this. I like that I can create my own schedule. I like that I can pick my clients. But I think the group practice was a really good framework for me to see, the insurance piece, how many people I wanted to see, did I have that potential, and also the financial of being able to kind of go on my own. Transitioning to that group practice, I mean, I still have contacts, I get referrals, there's a lot of professional networks, but that's kind of where that Nourished Nest Therapy Consulting came. As I shared with you, the Nourished Nest, I had to really think about it because I was trying to figure out, what would I call myself? A lot of times when we start a business, it's, Monica Mehalishick Corporation, and it really has our name, but I think it has to be meaningful, because when you sell your business, you have to buy what you're selling. And I'm a firm believer of that. I'm really good at, as far as just living, eating, and breathing. I talk about my company all the time because I'm obsessed with it. It's my baby, right? It's what I put my work and time and just effort in. So kind of the whole concept of that Nourished Nest was therapy is a safe space, right? So it's like a little nest, cute little chicks, all that good stuff. But I think what's also cool is that I get to walk with people in that process of how they nourish themselves. Therapy is the most awesome thing to see because, people come usually to start with a crisis, right? There's been infidelity, or I'm stressed, or I'm overwhelmed, I'm anxious, whatever the case may be. And I'm not in the tunnel with them, right? I'm literally manning the radio and I'm trying to get them to understand you can drive. You're a good driver. Texas, it's a whole other ballgame with driving. It's like their speed limit's like 85. But bottom line, figuratively, is that sometimes we have to have somebody guide us to that mindset of, yes, I am in control. I love that because I can see that, and it's really getting people to that point where when that light bulb just clicks, it's like, okay, oh, okay. And then we're just kind of, sailing along. So I really love that, but I wanted to make sure that my business was reflective of that. And so was the name.
It was a great story. There was also a thing that you shared with me about they didn't want to put your picture on the website because you wanted to show your arm is tattooed and they wanted you to wear a certain thing. Then you were like, you know what? How about this? Don't worry about my picture. I'll go make my own website and put what I want on it. And combined with everything else you just said, as far as, I think what a lot of entrepreneurs really desire is that freedom of time and making your own schedule and being in control. And the other thing that I loved what you said that I want to make sure we point out to the listeners, and I'm sure that Jack and Jennifer's going to point out, is that you really took that time before you started your own practice to really learn some business side, like the business side of things, to really learn, more of the ins and outs, in one way or another, kind of had some mentors to kind of talk to you about how things work and giving yourself some time to figure that out, which is exactly what my sister Jennifer did. I mean, she worked in another hair salon for someone else for, I think, 8 years, Jen, maybe
7.
at least 7 years, and just learn the ins and outs. And that can be such a valuable time when you're starting, if you want to start your own business. And I know, sometimes we've come across people who want to skip over that because they just want to get to I have my own LLC and my own website. And so I think it's such a great thing to point out that you did take that time and really, and recognized it when you were in the time that, what, let me figure this out. Let me see how this works before I kind of move on to my next thing. And I think that's you just did it in such a great way. But when you told me the story about the sleeve and you were like, forget the picture. How about that? Don't worry about the picture. And I was like, yes.
Well, that was a really good lesson because, I was actually talking to my partner about this last night. In high school, math was not my strong point. So I'm not very number oriented, right? My job doesn't require that. Most of the time I have a really good admin staff that does all kind of the financial piece. I remember in high school, just not being prepped for college. They were like, Monica, you're great, like English, all this other good stuff, but like math is not my strong point. So I say that meaning that, I think taking that time and learning the business is essential. And I think part of my motivation is that there were people in my life, in my childhood, that tried to block the doors, right? Would constantly remind me, like, you're not going to do this. When I started to get, part of my sleeve, it was like, you're not going to be taken seriously. And I'll tell you, I see some corporate executives, oil and gas is very big in Houston, but at the end of the day, they're coming for therapy. They're not coming for the tattoo sleeve. And part of that story, that I shared with Staci, is that, so the group practice, it's, kind of very conservative. These are doctors, and they're wonderful. But, I refused to get a headshot with this background, kind of like the lifestyles that you get in third grade, and I said, wait, part of picking a therapist is making sure that personality matches. And I wanted that to come out. And so I'm the only provider that does not have a picture. And at that point, I was starting to kind of marinate, and I said, you know what, at the end of the day, I'm very grateful that I was able to go to grad school at an Ivy League that gets me in the door. I mean, I'm still paying for it. I will pay for it eternally. But, I wanted my own style. And I think sometimes, as excited as we get, as cool as kind of the, business concept is, you have to be patient. You have to learn those ins and outs. So I've learned the financial, I've learned accounts receivable. I learned, all the paperwork, the taxes, you have to have good people around you, but you got to ask questions. So when it comes to financial reports, if I don't know, I ask, and I think there's also a value of, just sometimes listening and observing, and I'm a talker, obviously, but I've also learned the value of just being receptive, and sometimes taking experience and finding that lesson. Have there been, certain staff and different, parts of my business that it hasn't worked out great. Sometimes we have to separate. It's a tough thing to learn, but I'm very grateful for some of the organizations that I worked with where I had to go through that termination process. I had to figure out how to end relationships, but still keep a business relationship. I've also learned how to find my voice and to speak my truth. And I think that's, something that I try to remind myself of every day, that it's my business. I'm not the best decision maker, but I have to think what's in the best interest of the business. What does this look like 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line? What am I investing in? And I think that's where people get scared, is if you don't have the money, well, then I can't do it. No, the money's going to come. The experience is going to come. It's marketing, it's advertising. But a lot of it is you have to sometimes just stay put, find the lesson, and it's going to grow. But you got to put the work in. You cannot build a business without that blood, sweat, and tears. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So I think a lot of it is that back end stuff that people don't see. I'm checking emails. I'm working on my website. We're adding a lot of, services, podcasts. We're starting a blog. I'm adding a group therapy for moms. I'm doing all that back end stuff. So it's a process, but it's worth it. You have to invest in the mindset and you have to invest in the idea. It's got to be, pretty parallel.
I love it, Monica. It's funny, as you're talking, I'm thinking about probably 5 years in, when I was at the last salon I actually worked at, I kept kind of pressuring my dad, like, I'm ready. Like, I think I'm ready. I'm now for me, and I want to ask you this question too. I always knew from a young age, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Okay. Always knew. I was always attracted to it. Obviously my dad has always been an entrepreneur, but I remember, kind of pushing him, like, I'm ready to make the leap. And I remember this to this day. I was in my car crying on the phone to you, Dad. And you said to me, don't turn, learn. And he's like, I don't think he said you're not ready yet. I don't think that those were his words, but he's like, stay plugged in, keep going, keep learning, put your nose down. There's more that you need to know before you leap. Mm-hmm. And it's true. Obviously a few years later, I leaped and then told him like, okay, we're doing it now. But yes, so crucial. I think that gaining that experience, having a mentor, there's so much behind the business, right? Like, we are so passionate about the craft itself. Like, there's no question that I'm passionate about doing hair and doing transformational colors and being behind the chair and building these relationships with my guests. At the same time, there was so much behind the business aspect that, as much as I felt like I was prepared, you still kind of got knocked down once you got in the ring. So huge point, so important. So my question to you, Monica, is, back in Wilmington, did you have that mindset early on? Like, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do, but I know I want to go into entrepreneurship? Or was that like not even on your radar?
That's a great question. No, it wasn't. I think I shared this with Staci when we had connected. Fun fact, I'm quite an introvert, and you wouldn't think that because, I'm a loud talker. I come from an Italian family, so the volume's always up. But, I had to kind of find that and really figure out, what I wanted. So I don't think I ever, when I look back, in high school and, just kind of those early stages, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. I think that, college was strongly encouraged, but I didn't really have a passion. I do remember taking intro to psych, I think in junior year of high school, and just really being obsessed with, knowing that there's constant evolution. I talk about the brain a lot. I talk about feelings a lot. I talk about chemicals a lot. I talk about drugs a lot, which is also really cool. But, it's a cool part of my job. But no, I mean, I think if I look back to almost 20 years ago, I don't think I would have ever imagined being where I am. But I think what I've also learned too is that, you can't do everything. There are some people that are experts at things, and you have to allow them to help. I'll share with you my website, during the, I guess, kind of initial months of the pandemic, because I decided that I was not going to go on the group website. I was like, well, we're going to make one ourselves. And I know that I love the color purple, but I don't know how to do a website. And I found out how to actually went on Wix.com, and I made the page. but I didn't know how to go from one page to the other. So I started Googling like transition or like swipe, move, click, because I am not tech savvy. And for 6 months, that page just sat there. I found a great selfie, a good professional picture, and it wasn't moving. And I connected with an awesome contact. She does all of my websites. So I will say to her, listen, I need a registration. I need you to connect the payment. And it just appears. Mm-hmm. But I had to learn that like, you're going to stay put if you don't allow others to help, but you still have to find that balance of, yes, this is your specialty. I'm an expert at this, but I'm open to letting, you be a part of this and still find your vision, right? So what I love about that website is that when people visit it, they say, oh, it's you and a website. And it is. I mean, it's purple, it's got succulents, and it's really cute. And it's Monica in a website. Yeah. But I wanted that. So I think it would not have gone that way if I didn't speak up, if I didn't know exactly what I wanted. And I remember her saying, oh, the Nourished Nest, it sounds a little, prenatal or, maternal. And I said, I'm not warm and fuzzy, so I don't want that. So that's when we added therapy and consulting, because, there's really nothing else I could have added except like an expletive, and it wouldn't have been professional. So, I had to really advocate for that name because I wanted it and I wasn't going to change it. Right. So I've learned, I think, to find my voice in the last 20 years and just really plant my feet. And I think that's where people get lost, is if you have a vision and a goal and a business, you have to stay put, you have to let it grow, and it will take off. There's kind of that old adage of like, the best form of marketing is word of mouth. And it's so true. Most of my budget I spend hardly any money on budgeting because I just talk about it. I tell my nail lady about it. I tell the lady at HEB. I tell people at Target that talk to me that I don't want to talk to what I do. As I said, live, eat, breathe it. So I think that's awesome, like that you're able to relate to that process of just, you got to sit and wait. And sometimes you just know. You knew at one point that it was like, okay, I'm ready to get off that diving board. So you just got to feel it, but you got to trust it.
I know Dad wants to jump in so bad. Look at him, Stace. Look at him.
No, he's leaning forward. For those that can't, we're still zooming. So, it's about to come when Jack leans forward into the camera. But so we're ready, Jack.
Before we jump off of that topic, because Monica, I agree with you. And if we're using website, talking about website, it's amazing to have vision, but when you bring other professionals into your business, they also, that's part of their job, is to bring out your vision. So it's always amazing to me, even with my website, obviously I have an amazing website guy too, that you might have some ideas for your business, but when you invite other professionals in to kind of let them do their job, because they're going to bring out the best, because what do I know about websites, right? We always talk about on our podcast how important it is to bring in other professionals, let them do their job, website guys, accountants, and they should truly make your business better.
Dempsey Weiss & Associates is a multi-line insurance agency successfully meeting the insurance and financial needs of the landscaping, business contractor, and agricultural community in southern New Jersey and southeastern Pennsylvania since 1989. To learn more, visit us at www.dempseyweiss.com. J Faith Hair Studio, centrally located in southern New Jersey. J Faith Hair Studio is the place to go to become the best version of yourself. Confidence in your appearance is always important, and a great hairstyle is an absolute necessity. Visit jfaithhairstudio.com to book your appointment today.
I had a meeting this morning with the lady from my website, and, I would give her a concept in colors, and I would say, oh, what about this? What about that? But I'll tell you, aside from the headshot, she wanted to put more pictures of me. And I think we all have, that vulnerable piece, right? And I said, I don't know. And she said, no, we need pictures. And I'm like, well, we can do more succulents. Like, we'll do a picture of the office. And she said, people aren't, yes, they're coming to the office, but like, they need to see you. They need to connect with you. We did headshots and she sent them. And I'm like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like that, and I'm so critical. And she said, Monica, this is a game changer. People have to see who you are, that you are approachable. So I agree with that. I needed her to push that, because yeah, I mean, we all have selfies and, on Facebook and Instagram, but like, they're not business professional. So that was huge to allow her to be the expert. This is how you market. This is what's going to bring you to the website. And I think as I found my voice, it's just, it's been an awesome relationship with her, because I come to her with all these ideas and she's like, okay, that's a lot. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, no, okay, let's try to do this. So it is that dance, right? And I think in the beginning, she's doing the tango, I'm doing the waltz, and now we've got that vibe. But as you said, you want to be proud of your website, but you also want to make sure that it's done correctly.
Right. Go ahead, Dad.
Yeah, we're gonna let you jump in now, Jack.
Tell you what, three gals and a guy. It's hard to get in there, but I will say this before I ask my question. The only thing worse than graduating high school almost 20 years ago, the only thing worse than that is being a father of a daughter who almost graduated 20 years ago. That doesn't make me feel great, but I do feel great, and you guys look great. And I think, from just watching you guys, Padua ended up doing a good job. You guys turned out all right. So my question is, I love your passion. I love how this whole story has been unfolding, and it's still unfolding. But what's one or two things about the business of what you're doing now? Because you have a couple different businesses going on here. And it looks like one of the things that we talk about, Monica, is congruency. It's okay to have some different businesses or different profit centers for your business, but there has to be some level of congruency. People have, they have to connect. You can't, we've used the example, Jennifer is in the hair business, but then all of a sudden she wants to get into rental properties. Well, again, there's no, that might be an okay thing someday, but that's not congruent. We need to stay focused. So first of all, it sounds like you're keeping, even though you're doing some different things, there's still a level of congruency there. They line up, they're kind of in the same field, that type of thing. But in your businesses, what's taking you by surprise? What's one or two things that, in your entrepreneurship that you think, wow, that really was harder than what I thought it was going to be, or easier than I thought it was going to be? What's a couple surprises?
No, that's an awesome question. I think one of the things that's been kind of a game changer is obviously, for the last, 15 years, as a therapist, therapy is not necessarily always about the content, but it's the process. Right. So I'm looking at nonverbal behavior. I'm looking at, are you tapping your toe? Are you, you anxious? Are you postured? And, this year, I would say March 20th was probably the last time that I actually saw a patient person to person. So we've done all telehealth. So now I've gone from, the experience and the training that I've got person to person to therapy in a square, and a small square. Right. So I think that's been a bit of a challenge, and that took a learning curve of how to still engage people, but also be telehealth, right? I typically offer telehealth for clients that travel, more corporate executives, hey, I'm here, I've got to travel, I need a session. But it wasn't something that I did consistently. So I think learning to adjust to the technology was really important, but still figuring out a way to engage. There are clients that I started working with about a year ago that I've never met with in person. And as Staci knows, I'm short. I'm actually maybe 5'4.25". And I live in flip-flops, so there's usually not an inch difference. But I actually, a couple of clients were like, oh, we thought you were taller, because they said you just have a presence, like you seem tall, but no, I'm vertically challenged. So I think that technology transition was pretty big. I think the other piece too about being a business owner is you have to have discipline. You have to find a way to balance. And I think as a therapist, self-care is huge. I'm up at the gym 5 a.m. It's insane, but I will tell you that starts my day. My staff will tell you if I don't work out, I'm a different person. So I think the alter ego comes out, but that's time for me. That's mommy time, but that's time for me to make sure that my body and soul are just really, my mind, body, and my soul are really consistent. But I think, starting my own company, there is such a high rate of burnout because you just go, go, go. In your initial stages of running your business, you can't always pay people, to answer phone calls or check emails, or, it's just not in the budget. So you are everything.
Yes.
And I think that's been, a big eye opener because, I'm a parent, I'm Monica, right? I still have me, but then I'm also a business owner and I'm a therapist. So I've had to learn that it is totally okay to take a day off. It is totally okay to block off times in your schedule. And, this was a tough one for me because as a therapist, you are the calm of the storm for people. So I tell a lot of, students or people that, I've had the privilege of, working with under me as an intern, that at the end of the day, if you are 60% or lower, it's a day off. Okay. So I know going in, I have to have good rest. I have to work out. I've got to have breakfast. I've got to just have balance. And without that, what starts to happen is you spread yourself thin. And next thing you know, you're missing emails or you're missing meetings or, stuff starts to, rip at the, at the edges. So I think that has been a huge lesson because I think I can be very disciplined. I am a very well-oiled machine, but I also have to take a break. I have to check out sometimes. It's okay to say, listen, you know what, Friday, my kiddo's got this, I'm going to take off and not have to justify it. So I think that's been really important to say, listen, you know what, my kiddo's got a dentist appointment. Sometimes you don't even have to say that, but I'm just not available. And really making sure that I don't apologize for that because my time is just as valuable as someone else's. And really firmly believing that because, starting a business, exploring some opportunity can really be overwhelming, but we forget that we still have to take care of ourselves. So I'm very grateful for that. I'm always a work in progress. Yes. Are there times when I probably see more clients than I should? Yeah. Are there times when, I'm a little late on paperwork? Sure. But I know that I have to reset. And just be able to turn that email off, turn that phone off, just disconnect a little bit and recharge.
Boy, it's hard to do though, isn't it?
Yeah. I will say this year has been the toughest because there's a sense of urgency, anxiety, depression. People have been in their home for 13 months. I will tell you, I have not seen a family member in 14 months. That weighs on you. And I think, I get a ton of emails and, admissions and kind of referrals through the website. And at some point I have to put a cap on it because I cannot help everybody if I'm not helping myself. So sometimes it's really setting that boundary, but this year's been tough. I will acknowledge that I felt a little burnout and I had to just say, listen, I got to take a day. I'm now actually only working 4 days a week. Thursday is my day. So that's close for business that day. So I'm grateful that I have that opportunity, but that was a really good reminder this year of you got to practice what you preach. I can tell you to take care of yourself. I can tell you to go to the gym. I can tell you to have breakfast, but if I'm not doing it, you're not going to buy what I'm selling. So I got to make sure that my marketing pitch is consistent with what I'm doing.
Well, that's great advice too, because I think, practicing discipline in areas that you have control over, like, the things that you describe, even though I will say you're a little late to the gym. I'm there by 4:30, so I'll challenge you to get there, with the rest of the big
Bring
boys.
It. As long as there's a spare timer, we're good. But yeah, bring it.
Right. Of course, I'm in bed at 7:15 at night, but that's another story.
It's like right after Jeopardy, but okay.
Yeah, right. But you're right. It's that discipline. You have to really be able to practice those things because the discipline in our business, as time goes on, is really one of the keys to long-term success, because it's discipline, it's process, it's systems. And we talk about that a lot on our podcast, that, ultimately what's going to allow you to be present. I call it being present. When I go home at night, I don't want to sit down at dinner and be, looking at my wife and her talking to me, because she can tell. And my mind's still at work, churning, right? I mean, I want to be present. And so, you have to build systems that allow you to walk away and say, okay, I did what I set out to do today. I can walk home and be present, with people that I care about. And with like you, Staci, Jennifer, I mean, I'm not going home to little toddlers, or little kids, so you really have to be present there, because, that's another job you're taking on as soon as you walk in the door. So, so that discipline of, ultimately will turn into systems and processes that you have in your business that will allow you to more and more kind of unplug freely, so that you don't have to say, yeah, I'm unplugging, but your mind's still churning, while you're doing whatever you're doing on your Thursday, on your day off. You have to be able to truly unplug from that.
Yeah, I think that's pretty big, especially for, therapists in my industry, is that, we're working with people real time. So, unfortunately, I think, there's been an increase in domestic violence, about 60% this year. And there's also been, I think, just a high rate of, depression and anxiety, and whatever that sometimes, evolves to someone individually, right? It looks very different. I have learned that, putting in that disconnect is important. So I know for myself, when I shut off that laptop, when I close it, that's it. I also know that when I'm at the gym in the morning, those notifications have to be turned off. So my day doesn't start until I'm done my headspace, because otherwise it's distracting, right? Now I'm looking at an email, or it could be a referral, or, crisis, whatever it is. And that throws me off. And the important thing I think that I've had to learn is just the value of quality versus quantity. I love my job. I am so grateful that, this year has been really, it's been an experience, right? But no matter what, no matter how much money I make, I've got to be okay, right? I have to focus on the quality of Monica, because I could do really, really well financially, but if I'm burnt out, I'm not going to retire early. I'm not going to retire at all. I'm not going to be here to actually enjoy the business and what I've put the work into. So that's important. But that's tough to do. So there is value in shutting off.
Nice thing about Jennifer's business, you've had certainly a big uptick in business because of the downside of COVID. Jennifer had a big uptick in business because everybody was so tired of looking at themselves on Zoom. They think, I need my hair done. You know what? I think it's time for a little Botox or a little Brotox or something to clean this thing up a little bit, because I'm looking a little ragged. So
listen, I'm ready to ask, are you taking new clients, Monica? Number one, I have a lot of stuff to talk about. Number two, I could use some pointers, because you therapists are so busy that they're coming to me and I'm like, you don't want any relationship advice from me. Okay. You can vent, but I'm not going to give anything back.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And Monica and I we were talking a lot about self-help versus therapists in counseling, where people, obviously there's self-help for everything and there's a place in the world for it. But if you're really seeking for, healing, if you're really seeking to be able to put something in the past and move on and really gain wisdom from it, that you have to work with somebody. You have to work with somebody, because, I can speak for myself. I've read the books on a topic, but it wasn't until that I got with someone and I did the hard work and really allowed time to take its place. That's when change happened. That's when, life became better and things could be put into the past and whatnot. So we talked a lot about that as well. Self-help versus therapy. So I think that's going to be a topic on your podcast, Monica, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, that's kind of a game changer. You hear like life coaches, and one of the things I said to Staci is like, you can have experience, but the cool part about therapy, I always tell my clients is, listen, the only thing I ask from you is, to sit on my couch or sit in your square and just be ready to work, because, I'm going to push you, but I'm not going to shove you. My analogy, and my clients know me for my analogies, is like, I'm going to give you a menu, but you're going to decide what to order. So, it's really essential that, people do the work, but also, you find the right resources. I am taking new clients. I'm actually licensed in Pennsylvania, Texas, and Colorado. Just because I think Colorado's a cool place, and I'm sure there's people that need therapy there. But yeah, so there's definitely always an opportunity to learn. But I think therapy's kind of blown up this year because there's a lot of therapists on TikTok, and I have a lot of clients that get all this information, and I'm like, where'd you get this? And they're like, oh, this life coach. And I'm thinking, well, that's great, because I know University of Penn was not cheap, but a life coach certification is like $20. So, combined with like Padua and, college, it's like, yeah. So I think too, it's also just, being willing to do the work, not only inside the session, but outside the session. I know Staci and I talked about that. Like, a lot of people, I think, believe that therapy is, you're sitting on the couch and it's just somebody's nodding and saying, okay, great, I'll see you in 2 weeks. When you sit on my couch, you're going to get the feedback, you're going to get the directness. I don't talk any differently to, you that I would a client, because you're paying me to help you get to a point. So we can dance around the bush, like that's easy, but you got to do the work. You got to go right through. And I think that's where kind of that directness comes from. But, I'm grateful to do that. It's fun, but it's also really tough, and it's a lot of work outside of those 45 to 50 minutes. So you got to take it, you got to use it, and you got to come back and really see that progress.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned to me that you are just a few classes away from your doctorate.
Yeah, I got about another year. Of course, why not, have a business, just decide to go for a PhD. So, yeah, so let's see, I'm about 3 years in. So I think it's about 9.5 years of school in total. You'd think I'd be done with it. But yeah, so next year, I'm working on a dissertation, but I will have my PhD in psychology. So it's primarily what's called cultural psychology. So it looks at different indigenous cultures as well as international cultures. And it really looks and explores different treatment and therapies for those cultures. So being in Texas, I primarily actually work with a high rate of Hispanic clients and also Middle Eastern clients. And coming from an Italian family, I mean, Italians are just, you could watch The Godfather, you kind of already have a summary, but it's been an adjustment. But I also think the cool part of that is that I'm learning. The one thing I will say is that I learn more from my clients than they learn from me. I give really good dating advice. So yes, we can definitely coordinate. You can do hair. I'll talk about dating.
I could use some of that too.
Yeah. Well, and I work with a lot of women who, they are just, the net catches narcissists, and so I hear a lot of that. But yeah, it's a learning process. So I feel like I learn from my client, and that's a really cool thing. But I'm sure you're a great listener. I'm sure you probably give more advice than you realize.
It sounds like you work a lot with executives too, and maybe business owners. What seems to be, is there kind of a common challenge or something that you find that you talk about a lot with that client that might help our entrepreneurs?
I would definitely, yeah, that's a great question. The biggest common theme is kind of that failure to launch, that anxiety of, kind of that anticipatory fear of what if I decide to start my own company? What if I want to change careers, right? And I think that fear is really paralyzing because we've all experienced anxiety. I think everybody has experienced anxiety in some way, right? There's a continuum. But I typically see that because, in Houston, oil and gas is big. It definitely took a tank this year. It's usually a pretty lucrative industry. And that changes a lot for the state, kind of on the local level, but I think anxiety is the biggest thing. It's fear. And what I tell people is this, that, the core issue with anxiety is control. It's the fact, humans, we love control, right? So when people feel like they don't have control, it sets people off. You either fight, right? You resist, or you flight, you roll, you lace up, or, you just kind of hang out. It's very paralyzing. So that's kind of my top issue when it comes to new business owners or people that are just looking for a transition. And, I kind of use the analogy of, you're in the driver's seat, I man the radio. I must say that 50 times a week, because I really want clients to get to a place where they trust their decision-making. You can get a ton of opinions from people and perspective, but you have to trust your gut. And, that's something that I had to learn. It's a really cool process to see people feel a sense of control, not necessarily tangible control, but you know what, I feel like I can make this decision. I feel confident. I'm really grateful to be able to see that, because that reminds me that I have a voice and that I have to really firmly believe in what I'm doing. So it's a scary process. People come in and it's, they start ruminating, going down that rabbit hole. And then we just go, okay, are we done? Did we get it all out? Okay. And what I tell people is this: a lot of times we are so worried about how we drove into the mud, right? How we got stuck. Did we drive too fast? Did we not look at it? Were we not paying attention? The important thing is how you get out. It does not matter how you get in. You just have to focus on how to slowly get out of it. I say that because it can be very overwhelming, but once you're out, you're good. And then you're driving, you're back on the road.
Yeah, because it's interesting, because I think that what we're going to be seeing, we're seeing it now, going to see it more and more in the future as technology and, all the different disruptors out there become more and more disruptive, is that there's going to be people who are going to find themselves really in a place where they've been choosing what they feel like is the safe route, like working for the corporate America or working at this job, and realizing down deep, I'm not passionate about it, but hey, I got a couple kids, I got a mortgage, I don't really feel like I can step out and just do what I want to do because of these things, because the fear. And one of the things I've been trying to communicate, especially with younger people, but anyone, is what you think is the safest route is probably the riskiest route, because I've talked to more and more folks and met them, and some of them now work with me, who continued to take that safe route only to be downsized out, or, new leadership comes in and that knocks them out. They get through 2 or 3 career paths in corporate America only to get pushed out, another severance package, and now they're in their mid 40s, and they're like, I'm still kind of haven't made it anywhere, And so I think that for people to say, what, it's time for me to do something for me, entrepreneurship, or, I'm putting my destiny in my hands, not in someone else's hands. I mean, I think that's really is truly the safest way to go. And in today's world, with technology, as you said, you don't spend a ton of money on client acquisition, right? Because you got social media, you've got all these things that is relatively inexpensive, to promote your business. So, you can really get into a business and promote it, without going millions of dollars in debt to do it, so I'm glad you said that, because I think that is that underlying fear of, I want to do it, but what about, what if I can't make my mortgage payment, or what if I can't, do something? It's very paralyzing for people.
It is. Well, and I love that, as far as the marketing, because, Staci and I connect on Instagram, and, Instagram's free. And, I do a lot of posting, and, my business webpage, I mean, it's kind of gone up almost 200% just based on what I post about, anxiety, or, a saying. People are looking, and then they're curious. So you don't have to spend a lot on it. The other piece too is that, you bring up that good point of like just playing it safe. And I always tell people, you got to start with a little side hustle, right? Put your foot in the water, maybe even a toe, just give it a try. If it doesn't work, great. But I think there's a fine line between, figuring out, are you doing this because it's the backup plan, or are you doing it because you really want to stick with it? And, sometimes, I've worked a couple, part-time. I transitioned, put my foot out there and said, okay, do I like this? Because a lot of times people want to own their own business, but they are not aware of the investment in time and effort and commitment. And they find that they don't like it. So I always tell people, start with a side hustle, put it out there. If you don't like it, you still have a plan. You don't need to put everything in, but, just give it a try. And the worst thing that could happen is, again, give it a year. If in a year it doesn't work, you're probably still in the industry. You can get a job, you can reconnect, right? If my private practice didn't work, I could have gone back to a nonprofit. I could have gone back to, working in a hospital. But I'm glad that I took that chance. And I think some people just need that push and that belief that, it could possibly work. That's the mindset change of just having that vision and belief.
That was so good, Monica. Yep. Everything. I mean, there's just nuggets of info. We have golden nuggets in our podcast. And I just felt like you just had so many and you just said them so fast. I know Janet's over there writing down. I saw Jack writing things down, Jennifer writing things down. So
I saw smoke. She was like,
yeah, that's right. But no, everything you said today just really hit the nail on the head with so many different things that we've been saying over our podcasts, and certainly hearing them from your perspective, and certainly from your industry, which, again, I've shared with you. I feel like people are so very in tune, especially now, on how important mental health is overall. And so it's been exciting to have you on the podcast. It's been great to have the opportunity to reconnect with you and talk about life and other things. And so for all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in today. We will have all of Monica's information to be able to find her on her website, on her Instagram, so that you can connect with her. We'll also have our nuggets written out in the description. So be sure to share this podcast, download us, make sure that you go and like and follow Monica. And until we can all be together again, thanks again for listening. Be kind to yourselves, and most importantly, be kind to other people. Talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye. We want to thank you for listening today. Please subscribe so you never miss an episode. Leave us a positive review. And we want to say thank you to our sponsors, Dempsey Weiss & Associates and J. Faith Hair Studio.